Hello everyone and welcome to the Digimon Survive video. Now that I've finished my first playthrough of the game, I'm going to be giving you my full review in terms of my first playthrough. I'm still going to be as spoiler free as possible, however this time I will be editing in footage and clips and pictures and images, screenshots and stuff like that, but only stuff that was either in pre-release material from Bandai themselves to market Digimon Survive, or is my own footage from the first chapters of the game, basically the first two chapters. So nothing really spoiler heavy and nothing that we haven't already seen in the pre-release promotional material. So with that in mind, obviously if you want a 100% spoiler-free review, I have reviewed it a few times already, but just my my progress thoughts. So I was still playing through the game at the time of recording those thoughts, but if you do want the spoiler-free thoughts, they're there on the channel, so check those out if you still don't want to touch any spoilers, at least for now. So, obviously anything that's past Chapter 5 or Chapter 5 onwards, I won't be addressing. Any story bits, I won't be even mentioning it, even in the early chapters. So with that in mind, let's go on. So let's go through the good, the bad, and the digi of this very anticipated Digimon game. So let's go to the good, because I like to start things on a positive note. So all the characters are realistically flawed. They feel like people that I might actually see in real life. They had flaws that weren't just like the terrible caricatures that you see in media, the ones that are just like, well, that person's a bad person because they go, mwahaha, I'm evil. Those almost comedically bad characters that you get that just don't have very realistic, and they're not reasonable personalities, but they're also not ones that you'd see in real life. They kind of are ones that you would actually see in this game. Like these are people that are realistic in the way that they have their own flaws, but they're not like their flaws isn't just is bad person. There's usually some level of depth to, okay, why are they a bad person? Is there any reason for their actions? They don't just do bad things because, mwahaha, I'm evil. They do bad things because of, you know, actual reasons. And those reasons are actually said in the game. They're not just like, well, that person's bad. They have no reason for being bad. They are just a bad character. So it makes them realistic. And actually it makes it even depressing because of how realistic these characters are. You really do feel for the characters the more you learn about them. Even in the first playthrough, where you don't really get as much detail as in New Game Plus, that has a little bit more depth to it, you do still have some hints of why this character acts like that. And each character is fairly realistic, and it's kind of sad. And it's so realistic, it's depressing, but that's also a good thing. And that's also one of the main things that I love about this game, is that the writers have a fairly good grip on you the whole time. I felt the entire game that I was feeling exactly the way that the writers wanted me to feel about whatever was happening in the game. And that is probably my favourite thing about the game overall. So the story is everything I've actually ever wanted from a Digimon game. Again, I won't be going into why, because it's somewhat as a spoiler reason, but everything that I've wanted from the anime or even one of the games has come close, maybe-ish, to touching on subjects that I really wanted to touch on, but this game really just hits it out of the ballpark. It addresses a lot of things that I've wanted from a Digimon story or from the anime, but the anime's never been able to touch on it as hard because it is a children's franchise. Because Digimon Survive has an older demographic and therefore is able to go a bit darker, it is able to go places that the anime previously hasn't been. And that's something I love. It touches on so many things that I've just wanted for decades now from this franchise. The animations are well done and the graphics are really nice. There's nothing, you know, revolutionarily, insanely, wonderfully animated, or the graphics aren't, you know... Oh, the only example I have is saying, oh, you know, Crisis, but that just ages me. But it's just, you know, it's nothing that's groundbreaking. There's not groundbreaking graphics or anything. But they're not bad. They're simple but effective. It's nothing absurdly fantastic, but honestly I feel like it might age a bit better than the graphics that are those 3D ones, where if you look at 3D games from 10 years ago, they look terrible compared to now, but if you looked for the more cartoony graphics, they're a little bit better. So I do like the art style in the game. It has a good mesh between when it goes to the visual novel-esque style of gameplay and the point-and-click adventure, where it's more like the anime and the cutscenes there when they're animated, and then the tactical RPG, when they've got these little, like, 2D models, which are really cute. It actually fits pretty well with those two style of art styles. It goes really well together. So I'm a big fan of the graphics. The music's really great. It adds a great level of emotion to the game. It goes ominous or happy, and it really sets the scene so much. It sets the scene so well, and I'm really happy with the music. And at times it's haunting. It makes you get a shiver up your spine about how ominous this music is. So that's great too. The game itself also has great replayability with multiple endings. And it also includes the ability to skip text you've already read before, so when you do go back and you do New Game Plus to finish the other endings, you're not really forced to read over the text that you've already seen before, which is really great because if you replay it, you may not want to go through the hours and hours of visual novel again, even if you really enjoyed it your first time around playing. So that's a good feature that they've got kind of added in. It's under the settings, so you can I found it by mistake, but if you go to your settings under the menu, it's there's two options for it. There's post-decision skip text and skip text all unread or all read or what have you. So there's a few settings there. So that is a cool functionality. I haven't started my New Game Plus playthrough as of recording this. I'm thinking about starting it tonight. I'm thinking about streaming it, which is just Twitch. I'm on Twitch, so check that out. It's a little bit of a plug within my own plug, but anyway, so that is a nice feature to have. And I'm actually kind of impressed by how many different endings there are and how different they seem from what I've heard, not from what I've played. I got the Wrathful ending, which is the virus alignment ending, and I really loved the ending. I thought that was a really great way to end the game. I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones because apparently they're all quite different in terms of how the end of the game goes, and the game becomes different from about part 8, and then it goes to part 12. So all those chapters are completely different from each other, so I'm kind of impressed by how many endings there are. So there are actually 5 endings. There's a bad ending, which ends at chapter 8, or there's the Wrathful, Moral, or Harmony ending, which those 3 endings, the Wrathful, Moral, and Harmony, are related to the choices that you make in dialogue text, and those choices also not only determine what kind of ending you get, but also how Agumon evolves. So when you're early on, if you pick lots of Harmony options, you get the data type. If you pick lots of Wrathful options, you get the virus type. If you select moral options, well, mostly moral options, you get Greymon, which is the vaccine type. Which is also nice because it means you don't have to necessarily go down that anime path. So, big fan of that because I liked that it was a little bit different from just like, this is Agumon. He evolves the same way that Agumon does. So, that's nice. So yeah, you get those 4 endings, the bad, the moral, the harmony, and the wrathful, but you also get a 5th ending, which is the truthful ending, which is the true ending, as a lot of games with different endings call it, or the truthful, or what have you, so a perfect good ending. So that's pretty good. There's lots of replayability there. The first playthrough takes about 40 hours, so you're going to play that four, I guess 5 times, even though the bad ending is very short. So that's a huge amount of replayability, a huge amount of playtime, and I'm also excited to play it again. Like, that's how good the game is, at least in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. I want to play it again pretty much immediately after I just finished it, so that's pretty good. So the characters and story moments are well written, and they made me feel exactly how I should be feeling. The writers really did a good job of getting to all the right emotions that they wanted. And I really liked the character moments. Then those character moments lead to evolutions. And they were also pretty well animated, and I was always excited each time. Some of the evolutions as well for the partner Digimon are ones that I wouldn't expect, which is also exciting. I like trying to predict them each time. So that was another level of excitement. The fact that your friends, I guess, your teammates, and their Digimon will evolve depending on your affinity with them. So how close you've gone in your kind of like relationship, how much you've talked, what options you've selected, how much you get along, that kind of thing. So that's a nice little feature as well, that your choices determine not only your alignment and what ending you're getting or what Agumon will evolve into, but also determine how close you are with your fellow teammates and how far those Digimon will evolve. If you make lots of mistakes, like I did in my first playthrough, they won't actually evolve that far, which means that you'll only have lower level Digimon in the fights when you may be a higher level than them. So in my next playthrough, I'm looking forward to seeing what the other characters Digimon evolve into, because I didn't get that far with them, because I was doing it 100% without a guide. So I do love how when you talk to the characters, as I mentioned, you get affinity up with them, but the closer you are with your teammates, the stronger they are in battle, and not just the evolutions as I mentioned earlier. So you can actually talk amongst yourself with your teammates, and depending on what character's talking, you can get buffed to stats or a heal during battle. And these mid-battle interactions are actually really great and sweet, and they change depending on the interactions the characters have had or the alignment that your playthrough is leading towards. So that's also really nice too. It's nice to kind of have these mid-battle interactions because they're really sweet, and some of them are really funny or cute, and they really touch my heart. They're really sweet little interactions. So overall, yeah, this game mostly feels like it's written to me. It's honestly everything I've ever wanted from any story in the Digimon franchise. As I mentioned, it just feels like it was ticking all of the boxes that I wanted it to tick. It felt like the writers had asked me specifically what I wanted. That's how much I felt like this game was just written for me. There's the gameplay aspects I found were fun, all the aspects. I love the visual novel, the tactical RPG, I loved it. I love the point and click interactions and exploration that you have, and there's also a bunch of hidden things that you can explore. There's hidden like stories that you can find, there are hidden battles with Digimon that you can then try to recruit just by looking around, so you can completely miss these as they're not required, so it really adds further replayability to this game. I streamed this game, so I wasn't spending a lot of time to look out at these little hidden interactions and hidden things, but I definitely do want to have my own playthrough where I go kind of slowly through it so I can find more of these hidden things, as it's kind of fun, and they're also kind of like spooky and ominous to read through, these little readings that you find, so that's pretty cool too. So I finished with the wrathful ending in my first run, and without spoiling anything at all, I honestly loved this ending. It felt realistic, and it felt like it just felt like, you know, well, it was realistic, or as realistic as something with Digimon has, but I really felt like it was a realistic ending, and I was really happy with it, but I can't really go into too much because it would count as a spoiler. Now let's move on to the bad. So I'm going to start off with something that I necessarily don't mind, but a lot of people have complained about the fact that when you are making your choice in dialogue about whether you want to do something morally, do something wrathful, or do something harmonious, they're always in the same location. They don't rotate, they don't like randomize order, and if you hover over them, it also lights up with the colour that corresponds to that alignment. Now, I didn't mind about that, but a lot of people did because they wanted that extra level of challenge of, like, you know, doing it randomly and being able to see what happens. I tried to forget about the order or about the colour alignment because I did want to do it as what came naturally to me, but it would have been nice if it was more of a surprise about what option that I just selected and what alignment that correlated to. It would have been nice to have this as a setting that you toggle on and off in the settings, where maybe you can have it light up or not light up, or be in that order or be random, depending on what a setting is set to. And that could have been a good idea. As I said, I didn't mind too much, but I can see that it would have been a good thing to be able to toggle on or off and just enable or disable. So but that's like a minor thing, and a lot of my negatives are actually fairly minor nitpicks, to be honest. My next one is the camera angles in battle, and the whole, like, elevations sometimes at times got frustrating. The camera angles, they're not a free camera, you just press, like, the shoulder pads, and they kind of go one at a time, like they do 1/4 of the screen at a time. And it would have been a lot nicer if it was like a free cam, just because you could have a bit more control. But I understand that these are 2D models and they don't have, you know, the whole range of 3D. But it's just something that I found a little bit annoying. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of levels of elevation in the fight, which is pretty cool because it adds an extra level of difficulty, and you know, it's tactically cool, and you know, they added tactics to this game, which is thumbs up. But sometimes it can get a little bit annoying when you can't see where a character is because of, I don't know, a bookshelf in the way or a mountain in the way or something. So the camera angles can get annoying, but again, it's fairly minor. I don't really care that much. Another one, and this is kind of something that I've seen people complain about, but I don't really care too much, but it is a valid point, is that some of the recruitable Digimon actually spoil potential evolutions of the partner Digimon for the rest of your teammates. As the roster is only 113, it kind of narrows it down. You see a Digimon and you're like, that could possibly be the evolution from this teammate's partner Digimon. I never really encountered that, but I also didn't spend a lot of time doing free battles or evolving the recruitable Digimon. I do like that you can recruit Digimon. I do like that you can evolve them. The evolving them is actually pretty cool, actually. You get little slabs throughout the game, and then you use those slabs to evolve the Digimon that you found throughout the game. That's pretty cool. But in general, a lot of people thought that those were kind of spoilers because you could see what Digimon was in the game. Speaking of these recruitable or befriending Digimon, it can actually really suck if you're unlucky. So the method of recruiting this Digimon is that they say something and you have to select an option that makes them happy. It's different for every Digimon, and there are guides online about how to do this. However, once you've answered all the questions, at the end, if they like you enough, they'll give you an option to either befriend them or get an item from them. Now, the befriending them is completely, it has, a percentage chance of having them join you, which some Digimon is, a 2% chance. And sometimes it's, a 50% chance. And it can really suck if you're unlucky, because sometimes there'll be a really high percentage chance, and during the battle, there's no way to make that chance lower. Like, if you evolve, or if you attack them, it doesn't make the chance higher to recruit them. It can just be a little bit annoying if you're unlucky. And there's also another nitpick, which happens during the story mission battles, but sometimes if there's, a cutscene mid-battle, and there are your Digimon that are in this cutscene, your Digimon actually revert to child during this cutscene. They don't, devolve or anything. You don't see a devolving animation. They just appear as their child form during these cutscenes. Then at the end of the cutscene, you're back in battle, exactly in the same position, in the exact same level as you were before. I just found that was kind of weird. It just threw me out a little bit. But again, it's a very minor nitpick. But it's just something I noticed was kind of a little bit annoying. There's also only loading screens before a battle, but I played on the Switch, so it might just be limited to the Switch version that these loading screens were there, but they were also very long. They were the only loading screens in the game before each battle, but they were just, every time it felt like, I think it was about a minute maybe, it just reminded me of Skyrim, about having those long loading screens that lasted forever. You go out and you get a cup of tea or something during it. But again, not too bad, because those were the only loading screens in the game, except for the ones between each chapter, which didn't seem as long as the ones before the battle. So now I come to another. Yes, I have many nitpicks. They're very minor, very silly little nitpicks. So when the characters get evolutions for the first time, we get a cute interaction cutscene between the teammate and their Digimon partner, and it's really nice. They get a little bit of a bonding scene like you'd expect from the anime, and then this happens for every single evolution for every single level, and it's really, really sweet. Except for Kaito and Dracumon. This one I found was really weird, because you meet Kaito and Dracumon, and they battle with you, but they can already evolve. We never get that cute little interaction like we have with all the other characters. He's just already able to evolve. I get it. He already evolved off screen. That's fine. But I kind of wish that we got that interaction between them, as it's so sweet, and it's also nice to see the animation for the evolutions. It's really nice, I like it, but we don't get it for that Digimon, for that level. It's really weird, and it's just something that was like, okay, I guess I found out that he could evolve by mistake because I just selected that option when I meant to select Talk. So that was a little bit of a weird one. So there's that. And another thing is that the translation, and I don't really care too much about this, and it's not as bad as it was in Cyber Sleuth, but it does have some weird bits. The weirdest one that I found was in relation to the evolution slabs I mentioned earlier. And these use the Japanese terminology of each stage, like adult, perfect, ultimate, which will be fine, except for the rest of the game uses the English terminology. So we've got champion, ultimate, mega. That's kind of weird, but it's even weirder when you think that the description for the perfect enlightenment slab, I think it's called, says it evolves your Digimon to an ultimate Digimon, which is actually incorrect in terms of the English version, because we already use the word ultimate to mean perfect in the actual game. It doesn't actually evolve your Digimon to ultimate, it evolves your Digimon to mega. And I don't really care about whatever evolution names or the naming convention that is used, but it is really weird that they didn't translate that part. Or they did translate it, obviously, because it's written in English, but they didn't use the English terminology there. It just feels like it's a little bit of a hindsight. And, again, it's pretty minor too. Then we've got the next one, which is kind of a weird one. When Digimon evolve, they say their names, and these tend to be the Japanese names, because there's only the Japanese dub. They don't have any English dub names, but they use the English names in text. So there is a Vamdemon in the game that you can get from the recruitable Digimon, and when it evolves, it says, obviously its name's Myotismon, because it's the English terminology, it says Vam, because they censored Demon, and it's really, really weird that they did that. Because I get why they did it, it's just kind of weird that they used Vamdemon, and then they censored the Demon part. It's kind of a funny one. And then my last negative is actually one that is more than just a nitpick, and it's the whole Gilmon Dlc issue. So I bought a physical copy of the game. I pre-ordered it back in 2017 on the Switch, and in Australia, they don't actually give you the Gilmon code. It's digital only in Australia, and as far as I'm aware, Europe as well. The US, you could request the code from Bandai if you weren't given one, but that was not the same case for Australia. In Australia, and as I mentioned, Europe as well, you only get the TCG card promo code. You don't get anything for the Gilmon Dlc. The Gilmon Dlc is for the digital version. That's kind of annoying. It's like, hey, if you pre-ordered this game back in 2017, you don't get the special bonus. And the worst thing and the weirdest thing is that the digital versions didn't come up to buy until the release date. So that feels just like a little bit of a weird thing. I'm not the first person to be annoyed by that. A lot of people are annoyed by it. And the weird thing about it is that I then got my review copy, which is a digital copy, which is the 1 month version from the Switch, and it didn't give me the option to download Gilmon. That's the weird thing. Even if I go through the rights plate, I've reinstalled it, there's no option to redeem. So it's kind of a weird thing there. I'm not sure if it's because it's a review copy or if it's because I started on the physical version, but the whole Gilmon DLC and the early buyers DLC, it's just kind of a weird thing there. But I'm not the first person to complain about that, and that's probably my only bigger than a nitpick issue with the game, but it's not unique to me. So those are my good and the bads, and I'll absolutely be reviewing Survive again once I've played through the other endings, and also once the 2-month spoiler ban is no longer in place. So Bandai said that anything past Chapter 5 and onwards is considered a spoiler, and will be considered a spoiler until 2 months after release. So in my review in 2 months, I will be talking about the rest of the game and more about the story. Of course, I don't think my opinion will change too much between now and then. I will have played the other endings and I'll have more of a grasp on the different ways that the story can go. But I don't think my opinion overall on the game is going to change. I'm a huge fan of it. However, if you're still on the fence about this game, I advise you to check out either my other Survive videos where I talk about whether or not you should buy the game and what kind of games if you like, you should try this game. But also, I recommend watching some gameplay. I have all of my gameplay on this channel, so check that out. But anyone's gameplay would do. And just watch gameplay from maybe like the first chapter or two. It doesn't get too far into the story there, so you won't really be spoiled on much. But it'll give you a good hint of the gameplay. However, there is more text at the start of the game, and there are more battles towards the end of the game. So there is that. If you are scared of lots of visual novel and reading lots of text, be aware that the first chunk of the game is mostly visual novel, but that there are more and more battles as you proceed through the game. In terms of my rating, I'm going to have to give it like an 8.5 out of 10. It would have been like, I would have given it a 10 out of 10 because I love this game, but I have to actually take the fact that I do have negatives into account. So I'll give it an 8.5, but it's still probably on its way to be becoming my favourite Digimon game. It's much better than Cyber Sleuth, much better than Hacker's Memory, and I really love it. And the fact that it's got skippable text is also a plus. So those are my thoughts, at least for now, on Digimon Survive. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but please be mindful of spoilers. Don't put spoilers in the comments. If I see a comment with a spoiler, I'm going to remove it because maybe not everyone's played up to the point that you have, and I'm trying to be respectful of not only Bandai's wishes, but also people. I really want people to enjoy this game and experience it as is intended without being spoiled. So please be mindful of spoilers. If you do spoil something, I'll delete it. I'm sorry, but I don't want anyone to be spoiled by a spoiler, basically. But yeah, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like this video because I love Survive and I'm so passionate about it, and it really lived up to the hype for me. I was worried that it wouldn't, but it actually surpassed my expectations of it. That's how much I enjoyed it. And as I said, it felt like it was written for me. So yeah, of course, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to reach 12,000 subscribers by the end of this month. So please subscribe if you haven't already and tell your friends. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye!